Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's episode of Intuitive Angling, and really appreciate you guys swinging by the channel to spend some time with me on the video. Always appreciate that. And guys, today we're going to be talking about shaky head fishing. We're going to give you guys a really good foundation as far as if you don't know much about shaky heads, or even if you're a good shaky head angler. I've picked up quite a few tips over the years that I think might help you in terms of baits to use, how to rig them, areas to fish them in. And it's going to be a really good refresher course for everybody, even if you do know a lot about shaky head fishing. Also, guys, a couple quick housekeeping tips before we get started. I want to remind you that SolarBat has extended their their Independence Day sale on my SolarBat series RB2 and RB3 series sunglasses. If you want to get one, they've extended it through the whole month of July. If you're interested in getting a pair, you can get them at 30% off, and you can get a second pair at 60% off. So it's a really good deal. I'll link the SolarBat link in the description. And also, guys, please check out our Fish the Moment lake map breakdowns. I'll put the link in there in the description as well. Much appreciated there. Okay, guys, shaky head, man, it's just like, I can't tell you how consistent of a fish catcher a shaky head is. And it doesn't really make sense because it's basically a modification of a jig head worm and, Texas rig. It's like it's a little bit different, but it's not a whole lot different. But there's something about the presentation of a shaky head that will generate strikes when a Texas rig and a jig head worm will not. Now, people used a jig head worm for years, guys. And if you're not familiar with the jig head worm, let me show you what it used to be. This was the predecessor to a shaky head. And they basically just took a ball head and they just put it on like this. And this is the way, people fished a jig head worm for years. And it still works, don't get me wrong. But the advent of the shaky head, I'm going to show you how to rig it here in a second, has just taken it up to the next notch in terms of how, productive the bait is all over the time. So what I want to do here, guys, is I want to show you the correct way to rig a shaky head. Because I think a lot of people don't really know the correct rig, the way to actually set it up. Then we'll talk a little bit about the equipment. And then I want to go specifically into the time of year, areas, and techniques to fish it in. Just a good foundation. We could do an hour video on this, but I'm going to try to keep it short as possible. Okay, the first thing, guys, is the head. Now, there's a lot of shaky heads out there, but guys, I'm telling you right now, I have used every shaky head on the market. This is the best shaky head right here. It's the Gamakatsu G-Finesse Tricky Head. Aaron Martin's designed it. Also, I'll put my Tackle Warehouse link in the description for the tricky head if you guys want to get some. But it's got a really nice O'Shaughnessy bend hook in. It doesn't have the round bit. It's got the O'Shaughnessy, which hooks better. It's got a nice tin keeper on the thing see that little tin keeper on there? This is super critical, guys. You need to have a really good keeper on a shaky head to keep your worm up. And it's got a nice, conical head on there that comes through the cover real good. One of the things about this, another thing about a shaky head, guys, is a lot of the shaky heads you see out there on the market have a screw lock head on them. Don't get the screw heads, guys. All the top shaky head anglers in the world, this is the type they use, the thread on. The little screw on there, it's user friendly, but it makes the worm look different. You simply don't get as many bites on it. So this is the head you want to use, Gamakatsu Tricky Head. And my favorite bait to use on it is a Zoom trick worm or a Zoom finesse worm. Probably my favorite is a trick worm. If I'm fishing a lake that is super tough or really clear, or a lake that has a lot of spotted bass in it, I'll use the finesse worm, which is shorter. But the main thing is the way I'm going to show you how to rig it. You can rig it on any worm you want to. A lot of people like robo worms. Whatever your favorite worm is, this will work. So first of all, I'll tell you a little bit about a couple of mistakes people make, and I'll show you the right way. The first of all, when you thread the hook onto the worm here, get fresh worm here, make sure when you thread the hook onto the worm, you don't come too far through it. You only want to come like 1/8 of an inch, because if you come further than 1/8 of an inch, it's going to go down past your barb and it's not going to seat well. So just barely put it in there, like 1/8 of an inch, thread it in there, and when you thread it in, make sure that your barb is securely locked in there, which locks the worm in place where it doesn't come in there. That's the good thing about the barb in there. It keeps it locked in. Next thing you do, and I'll show you a mistake a lot of people make, guys, is you never want to rig your shaky head like this, where you just put it straight back into the plastic. See, I've got it just, rigged straight in the plastic and it's not coming through. If you rig it like this, you're going to lose a ton of fish because you basically made it too weedless. And you're using light line for the most part on a shaky head. So if you try to set the hook, if you just bury it in like that, you got to penetrate a tremendous amount of plastic. You're going to lose a ton of fish. So the correct way to do it is bunch your worm up a little bit like that and come all the way through the worm, completely out the other side like that, and go back and forth with it and sort of make a little channel there. This is really critical. I go back and forth like that to make it where it's easy to come through. And if I'm fishing a fairly clean bottom, like say a gravel point or a clay point or something like that, I leave it just like this. I leave it with the hook point exposed. This is my favorite way to fish it because you never lose them. But if you're fishing an area that's snaggy, like brush and stuff, you need to back it up a little bit and then just put the tip of that hook back in the worm, barely. You don't have to do much. See how I just barely got it in there? The point of that hook is just barely in the plastic, and that makes it perfectly weedless. And also another thing, make sure that your worm is straight, guys. You want to make sure the worm is straight as possible before it's ready to use. Now the next setup, talk a little bit about line size. Line size to me is relative to how clear the water is, how big the worm you're fishing is, and how finicky the fish are. My favorite all-around test line is I use 8-pound test Seagar and Vizex line for most all of my shaky head fishing, especially with the trick worm. Now, if I'm fishing a finesse worm, like the Zoom finesse worm or smaller type finesse worm, sometimes I'll go to 6-pound test Seagar and Vizex because you can fish deeper with it. You have a little bit better feel on that really small worm. And if I use a larger bait, like sometimes one of my favorite things to do is to take a soft plastic stick bait like a Cinco or the Zoom's Linky. Sometimes I'll go with 10-pound test Seagar and Vizex with that because it's a bulkier lure, heavier, and you can simply cast it further. And a lot of times you're fishing shallower with something like that. But anyway, 6 to 10-pound test Seagar and Vizex line. And most of the time I'm using that Mega Bass, either the whip snake or the Addermine. And again, guys, I'll link all this stuff in my Tackle Warehouse links if you guys want to pick it up. You can get all the gear to be ready for shaky head fishing. So that's how I set it up with it. Now, another thing about head size is really critical. And one of the reasons I like this Gamakatsu tricky head is it comes in a 1/16 of an ounce. This is a 1/16 of an ounce head, which is my favorite. A 1/16 of an ounce head has a nice slow fall on it, and you can fish it in the rocks without getting hung up as much. If you try to fish a shaky head like an 1/8 ounce or a 3/16 or a quarter in rocks, you get hung up all the time. But I can fish like riprap banks with this 1/16 of an ounce, and it just sort of floats across the top of them. It's really nice with that. But I usually use a 1/16 of an ounce as my number one choice. I will go to an 1/8 of an ounce if the wind's blowing a little bit, or if I have to fish deeper. Say if I'm fishing off a point in 15 or 25 foot of water, I'll go with a 1/8 ounce. And guys, I hardly never go over an 1/8 ounce. It didn't matter what the situation is. I do not like a shaky head with over an 1/8 ounce sinker on it. I don't feel like I'm finesse fishing if I do that. If I have to go over an 1/8 ounce sinker on a shaky head, I'm usually using a different type of a lure. So 98% of the time, I have used a 3/16 ounce occasionally if it's super, super windy and I'm fishing really, really deep. I've done it once in a while, but 98% of the time, it's the 16th ounce, and the 1/8 ounce is gonna be the best setup for it. Okay, which is really critical. And also, I think it's one of the things about the head color on there, I haven't noticed much difference as far as the head color. A lot of people like to match the head color to the worm. But if anything, what I do is I'll take some red fingernail polish and I'll paint the head red occasionally in clear water. But if you're fishing water visibility in that 2 to 3 foot range, head color doesn't seem to matter that much. You can put a black head on a green pumpkin worm or a brown head on a green pumpkin worm, and I haven't noticed much different strikes with it. Okay, let's talk a little bit about where you want to fish a shaky head. You can fish a shaky head pretty much anywhere. Shaky head works great around about any type of cover that you want to fish, but some of the best areas that I have had my most success on a shaky head are main lake and secondary points, especially during the spring, the pre-spawn, the spawn, and just after the spawn. It's hard to beat a shaky head on secondary and main lake points because you have a lot of fish that are staging, getting ready to spawn. Some fish are spawning on those points, and some fish move out to those points after they get done spawning. So any type of point is a great structure with the shaky head. My second favorite structure to fish with it is any type of a boat dock. Shaky heads are excellent around boat docks, especially if you have lakes that have a big spotted bass population. All you guys that fish like Lake Lanier, Georgia, Lake Norman, North Carolina, any of the Ozarks lakes, some of the Northern California lakes, shaky heads and boat docks go hand in hand, especially if you have piling type docks, the type of docks that are like on the TVA lakes, where you can skip that shaky head up under those pilings and in the shade. You can do the same thing on floating docks. And my best area on a floating dock is like under the walkway on the inside part of the dock. So one of the things that will really help you with the shaky head is get good at skipping with a spinning rod. And that's another reason I like the 1/16 of an ounce head, because a 1/16 ounce head skips really easy. And if you go to anything over a 1/16 ounce head, like if you go even to an 1/8 ounce head, it doesn't skip worth a dang. It catches the water and messes your worm up. It's really good to skip with the lighter head on that. But anyway, I've caught them on every structure you can imagine. I've caught them on riprap banks, just going down rocky banks. I've caught them, around brush, fishing offshore brush piles. Anywhere you think that there's a bass, they're going to catch them. But by far, the two type of structures I fish are main lake secondary points and boat docks with it. Those are hard to beat. So anyway, guys, that's just a quick little tutorial, a quick little seminar on shaky heading. If you don't know much about it, that'll get you started. And maybe if you do know a lot about it, maybe you picked up something to help you guys catch a few more down the road. So anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. We'll check later.